I'm going to start us off by talking about what the Google Drive is. And some of this you might already know, but if you don't know, Google Drive is a type of what's called cloud storage. And so cloud storage is really just a weird name for the process of storing digital files basically on a computer that is not yours. So cloud storage is your digital files. They are stored on a physical device. It's just that that physical device is located somewhere else in the world. And that physical device is always connected to the internet and should always be available. And so that's one of the primary perks of cloud storage, is that you don't have to keep track of any sort of physical device that your files are saved on, such as a flash drive or a computer hard drive, or even something like a CD. If you want to go back in the olden days, because your files are stored digitally on a device that's always connected to the internet, it means that you should always have access to those files. And it's with any device that connects to the internet. So it could be your computer, whether that's a laptop or a desktop. It could be your phone. It could be a tablet. Any device that can connect to the internet can access your cloud storage and thus access your files. Another great benefit of cloud storage is that many cloud storage providers, such as Google or Microsoft or a lot of other companies, have their own kind of flavor of cloud storage. They offer not only the storage itself, but also a host of tools that allow you to share and manipulate those files. So at a broad level, that's what cloud storage is. Google Drive is just Google's version or flavor of cloud storage. And there's all sorts of cloud storage out there. You can find a lot of cloud storage. You can find at least a limited amount of storage for free, whether it's for personal or business use. But beyond a limited amount, when you get into larger files or use a lot of files, usually you have to pay for it, just because it costs a lot of money for these companies to offer cloud storage. They have to buy the physical device. They have to maintain the physical device. They have to keep the physical device secure, et cetera, et cetera. So while you can find some cloud storage for free, if you use a lot of it, you do have to pay for it. But as far as we're concerned, for this workshop, KVCC provides all of its employees access to Google Drive. And I'm not sure if there's a limitation in the size of your Google Drive, but if there is, it's very, very large. And most likely, most users will not use it up because I have a lot of things in my cloud storage and I've not run into any trouble. So you're probably not going to run out of storage. It's probably, and I haven't checked with IT to verify this, but it's probably what's called dynamically allocated. And so it just will expand automatically as users add more data to their cloud storage. So all you really need to know about that is that you probably aren't going to run out of space. So you can reach your KVCC Google Drive from your MyValley home, your MyValley homepage, and it is going to be under the employee links, and directly below the link to your email, you have the link to employee Google Drive. And when you first log in, you may have to log in. It may not log you in automatically unless you save your credentials like I have. And the login is just your KVCC username and password. So nothing new there. Your drive will look different than mine and will look different from each other's. And that's because you may not have been using it at all, or you will have different files and folders in your drive. So it won't look exactly the same, but the general tools and layout will be the same. You'll see a list of links on the left, and then a list of tools and features on the top and the side. But your actual folders and files, of course, will be different than mine.
David?
Yes.
How secure is the Google Drive? I know that when we were working on the EAA information, what we were told was only use your Google Drive at Valley versus your own personal Google Drive.
Yeah, so for work-related files, you don't want to use your personal Google Drive. There are different IT security measures put in place by our IT team that may not necessarily be in place for your personal Google Drive. So keep those separate, in general, Google Drive is as secure as the user. Most of the time that there is a security breach with Google Drive, it's something that is a result of an action by an individual user, as opposed to a flaw in the tool itself. Google hires very smart and experienced IT professionals, and because many big businesses use Google, it's very important for Google to keep their drive as secure as possible, or they could lose a lot of money. It's not impossible for Google to be hacked. I'm sure that it has in some areas before, but it's as secure as most anything on the internet could be. As secure as, another big provider is Amazon. They have a lot of different tools besides just like their e-tail business. It's as secure as Amazon, and anything else can be online. So the majority of the time that there's a problem is because a user got duped by a hacker into revealing their username and password, clicking on a link that gets that kind of information automatically. So generally it's user side. So as long as you're really careful and keep up with the IT security training that are offered, it should be pretty safe. But keep your work files on your work Google Drive and your personal files on your personal Google Drive. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good question. All right, so I think what I'm going to do is just kind of start by working my way down through this left-hand list of buttons and links and stuff. And so I'll start with this button that has the little Google colors and plus sign and says new. And this is a way to start adding things to your Google Drive. So when I click on it, I have this pop-up window here, and I can see I can add a folder, and I can give the folder a name, whatever you want to call it. Click create. And now in my list, I see David's FSC files. There's that folder that I just created, and I can delete it very easily by selecting it and clicking the delete button on my keyboard, or I can right click on it and choose to remove it. Since I just don't want that, it's just an example. So that's how you add a folder. One way to add a folder. There's multiple ways to add a folder. You can also right click just anywhere in this area, and then you get this pop up, and you can do different things here as well. There. I guess you need to stay away from these folders. If you're going to right click to do it up here near the headers, and then you get the right pop-up window. If you right click down here, it's like you're manipulating whatever you're on. So that was an important difference. But anyways, going back, you can also upload a file, and you can click on that, and then you get the little file explorer window, and you basically are just navigating to wherever your files might be saved on your computer. Or if you have a flash drive plugged into your computer, you can find it on your flash drive. It could be your desktop, wherever you're saving your files. Basically, you just need to find the file in question and then select it, and you can either double click it or you can select it and then click this open button. Either way, it does the same thing. And now this is a file that I've already uploaded, so it's asking me if I want to replace the existing one. So I chose a bad example. Let me choose a different example. File upload. Simple syllabus email. So I'll do that one. And now I see that my simple syllabus email file, my PDF, has been uploaded to my drive. And there it is, and it's ready to go. Again, I don't really want it there, so I'm going to remove it, but just as an example of how to add it. You can also upload an entire folder. So I showed you how to create a folder here, how to upload a file, but you can also upload an entire folder. For example, I have this black belt folder, and there could be, any number of files within here, and I could upload the entire folder. It has a little security thing just to make sure that I do want to do this, and I can click upload and they'll upload that folder. And that way, if you don't have to go file by file, if you have all your files and you want to upload all these files into your Google Drive, instead of doing it one file at a time, you can simply put them all in a folder and then upload the folder, and it'll just save yourself some time. And then we also see a list of applications that Google has. Some of these you might already be familiar with, like Google Docs is like basically their version of Microsoft Word. Google Sheets is their version of Excel. Slides is their version of PowerPoint, etc. And there's more that you can choose as well. You can create directly within Google Drive using their different apps. So I could do a Google Doc. That's if I could type. And Kim and Jenny, Lisa, Kathy. So I'm just making a quick little attendance sheet here in my Google Doc, and it saves automatically. I don't have to, manually save it. And now when I close, and if I refresh, I see here's that Google Doc that I just created. Oops. In my Google Drive, today's workshop attendance, and I can open it and see that content. So you can create individual files using Google's applications if you want to. You certainly don't have to. If you're more comfortable using the actual Microsoft Word, you can always open Word, save the document, upload it to your Google Drive. But if you want, you can just use their equivalent, Google's equivalent applications directly from within Google. So that is one way to add content to your Google Drive, but you can add files and folders simply by dragging and dropping as well. So,
okay, question.
Yes.
If you upload a document from, say, Microsoft Word, how do you do that? You save it to Google Docs, or how? I'm not sure how you do that.
Sure. So let's do one. All right, so here is a Word document, and we'll just do attendance again. G Drive attendance. So I'm making my Google document, and you save it just as you would any other document, and you can choose where to save it. I'll just do it on my desktop because it's easy to find. G Drive attendance, I'll just put it on my desktop. But you could save it to a flash drive, or you could save it to a certain folder if you wanted to. And then now it's saved. So I have my document. So I'm going to close this out. And then I know I saved it to my desktop. So one way I could get it to my Google Drive is to drag and drop. And so here's, my desktop files. And I see here's that G Drive attendance file that I just created. If I had a certain folder I wanted to go in, when I drag it, I could hover it over that folder, and that way it gets added directly to that folder. But if I don't have a specific folder, I can just drag it anywhere outside of folders and let go. And then it uploads. And now I see there's my Word document, G Drive attendance uploaded to my Google Drive. So dragging and dropping is pretty easy if you've got your file on your desktop. But if your file is kind of buried in a bunch of folders, it may be easier to do the plus button and then the file upload option. And then once you do that, you're doing the same thing where you're just finding your file wherever it's saved. And so I see I've got an option for desktop, and I know that that's where I save my file. And there it is, G Drive attendance. So I can either double click, or I can click it once and then click open. Either way, it does the same thing. And I've already got this in here. So it's asking me if I want to replace the one that's existing or keep both files separate. Since it's the same thing, I'll just replace, upload, and then it uploads it. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
All right, excellent. Get rid of these just so I'm not messing up my Google Drive with things I don't actually want there. And you can move multiple files over at once if you wanted to. So I have my Foodways, Zoom info, and my Google Drive attendance file. And if I wanted to bring them both over, I can do it at the same time simply by selecting them both and then dragging them over. So I can select them by, left clicking with my mouse and then kind of dragging until the little square selects both files. And then when I move them, you see that it moves both the files and I can bring them over both at the same time. And just save myself a little bit of time instead of doing them one at a time. And you can do that with multiple, there's probably some kind of limit, but I could bring over every single one of these things if I wanted to at the same time. There's not like, you're not gonna select more than it can handle. And you can also bring over like multiple folders at the same time, as well as multiple files. So I think you can also bring over multiple files or folders using this route as well, not just the drag and drop. So if we did a folder upload, I don't want folder, file's gonna be easier. If I do the file upload, I can select multiple files here and then add them all at the same time. So it kind of does the same thing as dragging and dropping, just a different way.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Do you have, personally for you, do you have most of your work documents? All of mine are saved onto the O drive. Should I be transferring those to this as well? If I wanted to work, if I needed it remotely?
So I don't know for sure what the future of the O drive is. There have been some murmurs that the O drive may go away. I have no idea how substantiated those rumors are. I'm sure that the IT team will give us plenty of notice if we do move away from the O drive. So it's not like you're going to lose anything without notice, if you just use the O drive. I like using the Google Drive because it's easier for collaboration. One thing I'll be showing later on is how you can share files and folders and even entire drives with multiple people. And then that way you can all work within the same, folders and files and stuff. And so the collaboration tools are a lot better, in my opinion. So that's why I use Google Drive more than the O drive. But the O drive is a fine solution. You don't have to leave right now. If you're happy with it, your experience with it, you don't have to. If IT decides to get rid of it at some point down the road, this will probably be our solution. It's replacement. And you can do all the same things and more with this. So right now, it's a personal preference. So let's talk about, let's move on to the sharing aspect of Google Drive. So you can see that I have below my drive, this shared drives. You may not have this if you haven't had any drive shared with you at this time. You may not have this on your list, but I have multiple drives that have been shared with me, and I can click on it and see the different drives that have been shared with me. So there's an IT and FSC shared drive. This is a shared drive that's a combination of the IT team as well as the FSC team. So if there's any folders and files that both the IT team and the FSC need to work on, we can all access them within here. So if I go into this, I can see some of the files and folders, and I see that there's one group and there's 9 people included in here, and I can view who the members are. And see there's me and there's Aaron from IT, And Dave is no longer with the college, so we can remove him at some point. There's Gail, my boss. There's some people from IT. So basically, we just see that this is a combination of IT and FSC people. And this is just a nice way that we can all work on these different files and folders together and access them together. And going back to my shared drive, I see that there's several other shared drive as well. And some of them have just, this one I created just for this workshop. So there's only one person in here, but all the other groups you see have multiple people in there. And it just allows us all to access these shared drives. Before I move on, let's see, how did you get to the view? How did you get the, so you have different ways of viewing your files and folders in your drive, and you can switch between them with this button here in the top right area. You can have it as a grid view, or you can have it as a list view. It's entirely a personal preference thing, whatever you prefer, but that's how you switch between them. Let's take a look at, no problem. Let's take a look at what you can do, how you can manipulate folders and files within your drive. So you can right click on a folder or a file and you get this pop-up window. And then you have various things, various options in this pop-up window. And the first is open with, and you can add different Google applications. And I don't have really any, so I don't have a list here. But if you add them, they would show up here. So if I had like 3 applications that could view images, I could decide which of those image applications I wanted to use to open up this image file. That's not the case in this scenario right now, but that's an example of what you might use the open with for. And then we have share. This is where Doodle really shines, the sharing aspect. If you click on that, you get this window where you can add people. And so I've added all of you on a folder and a file before, but you simply just use email addresses. And since I've used shared things with Molly Pfaff before, she kind of pops up without me having to add her full email address. Once you select the people or peoples, and you can add multiple people at the same time, you can give them a message. Whatever the message you want to give them, and you can change their basically their access. They could be the editor, which gives them full access to the file. They can organize, well, this is a folder, so they can organize the folder, add or delete files, basically do everything that me as the creator could do. You could do a commenter, and this just gives them the ability to add comments to files within it, or viewer, and that's the least permissions, and that just lets them see, but they can't actually manipulate anything file or folder. They can just view it. Depending on what your end purpose is, you may want to select one of these over the other, and you just choose the one that you want, and then send. And so Molly and Gail will both receive an email with that little message that I gave them, and they'll just ignore it because that's what I told them to do with the message. But in another example, you may say, this is that file I was talking about. Go ahead and look at the folders and make changes as necessary or what have you. So in my Google Drive Workshop folder, I have one file, and what is your favorite ice cream flavor? And I see this little icon with like silhouettes. That means that it has been shared, and I can right click on it and I can preview it. And then I get just a little preview of what the document has. And I can choose to open with. If I had multiple things, really, I just want Google Docs, and this will open it. And we'll see that I've added my ice cream. Lisa and Kim have added theirs. That's good. So they were able to access this and make some changes and stuff, and that's great. I can choose to share it, and we just saw how to share. And we see the people that have the ability to view it right now. It's myself, Gail and Molly, who I just added, and then all the people that had registered for this workshop. And I can also from here change the access if I wanted to. Like if I wanted to change Gail from just being able to view it to being able to access it, I click on the viewer, change it to editor and save. And now Gail will also be able to add her favorite ice cream flavor. Or if I don't want her on here at all, I can remove and then save. And now she's gone and she can't access this file any longer. There's one other thing, really the only other thing that I want to talk about in this list is transfer ownership. If I started the file, but I'm not the one that should be, going forward with it and say Jenny is, I can transfer ownership to her and then she becomes the owner of this file and she can take it over and make whatever changes she wants to at that point.
So I have a question about this.
Yes.
Because I have used Google Forms to do an activity with students. When I'm sharing it with them, what I'm understanding is that they have to be editors, correct?
If they are going to make any changes to it.
Yeah, like I'm having them put their name on different things. And so, because sometimes I'll get, I'll have a link and I'll have the faculty member put the link up, and then I get all kinds of emails that say, Jenny, I need access to this.
One reason that happens that I've run into is that, a lot of people have their own personal Google account. And when you're sharing it, you may share it to KVCC accounts, but that person is logged into their personal account. So when they try to access the file, they're trying to access it under their personal account, which you have not shared it with. You shared it with their KVCC account. And so that happens all the time. I have a folder with one-off little tutorial videos that I share with faculty. And that happens all the time where they're logged in with a personal Google account. And I say, you have to log out of that and then log in with your Google account. Or I just add their personal Google account just because sometimes that's easier. But that's what happens all the time.
So all KVCC students have access to Kalamazoo Valley's Google Drive.
Correct. Yep. They have their own Google Drive, just like we do.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. When we're in the share folder, we have this get link. And right now we see it's restricted. Only people added, which, oops, let me go back. I didn't mean to do that. Only people added, which are these people here, can open this link, but I can change that if I want to. There's this little blue share with the Kalamazoo Valley. If I click on that, I get this little page here, and there are three options. There's restricted, which is what it was originally, which means only the people that you have manually added to this file can access it. There is Kalamazoo Valley. That means anyone logged in with their KVCC Google account that also have access to the link can reach it, or anyone with the link. And that just means anyone that has a link can access the file, whether they're logged in with their personal account, their KVCC account, or not logged in at all. Depending on what the document is, you'll want to use different levels of restriction. If it's something that should be public facing and accessible, anyone with the link. If it doesn't matter, who at KVCC has access, then Kalamazoo Valley. If you only want specific people to access it, then restricted. And you can change it, after you've set it, you can change it at a later time. So if I set it for KVCC and then a week later want to make it restricted, I can do that. I can change it at any time. And then once you say who can access it, you can also change the level of access, which we talked about, viewer, commenter, and editor. You can also get the link for the file with the get link. If all your share settings are correct, well, okay, so that just is where we already were. It's just sometimes there's redundant ways to reach the same thing. So we could reach it from the share by clicking on this, and we see this is the same as that get link page. Either way, they both do the same thing. So you get the link, and then I can, you could even put the link in the chat. And then that's just one way you all could access this file.
I find that very helpful because it can be, you can get lost trying to figure out where it is And so if you're working on a group, to share that link can be really helpful.
Mhm. If you could email the link, or if you're teaching in class, you could include it on like a Canvas page. Just basically any method of getting that link to others will give them what they need. You can add to Workspace. And so we'll talk really briefly about this. Let's see. Under priority, Doodle gives you workspaces. And so you can manually create workspaces, and Doodle also tries to link what it thinks are related files into a workspace. And Workspace is really just a way to kind of work more efficiently in Google Drive. So I have one manually created workspace for foodways, and I have a video from the foodways, a couple of videos from the foodways, and I could add more stuff to this if I wanted to, such as my foodways Zoom info document. And this is just a nice way of grouping related files together for easy access. It's not really all that different than working from a folder, because it kind of serves the same purpose where it contains related files. The big difference is that when I look at my drive, I have several folders and several files. And when I go into those folders, I have subfolders, and some of those subfolders have subfolders. And so, depending on where my document is saved, I may have to go several folders deep to find what I'm looking for. And if I know it's something that I'm going to need easy access to, then creating that workspace and grouping those files together and folders together just makes it easier to access them. It is not the end of the world if you don't use workspaces. You can do everything without it. You can complete everything that you want to and not ever use them. But it's just a way to work a little bit more efficiently. So just to know what that is. Let's go back to this page. Sometimes you're several folders deep and you need to know, well, that's a bad example. Let's find a good example. There we go. Okay. So I'm in my priority, and one thing that the priority also has is some of the most recent files and folders that you open across the top. And say you want to reach the folder that a certain file is in, you can right click on that file and then show file location, and then it'll take you to the folder that file is in. So it's just a way to kind of skip through a few clicks to reach the folder that a file is in, especially if you don't know what folder a file is in. That's where that comes in super handy. You can move to, if you want to move a file from one folder to another, click on move to, and then it shows you where you are originally under the Google Drive Workshop folder. And I can go back, and then I can see all the various folders that I have, or I can go back again. And if I wanted to make this available to one of my shared drives, and then I can do that from here. So I can say, okay, I'm going to put it in one of my shared drives. Let's say I want to put it in the ITFSC shared drive. And now I have the option of going deeper into a specific folder, or I can just move it right here. And I say move, and it tells me, hey, just so you know, you're moving this into a folder that other people have access to, which means other people will be able to see it. Do you want to move it or not? And I can say move, and then it will be taken out of my drive from this folder and put into that shared drive. I won't actually do that because IT will be like, what in the world is this about? But you can do that. You can add to starred, which is really handy if it's a file that you're going to use a lot and you want easy access. I can say add to starred, and then we notice on this left-hand side, one of the links is starred. If I click on that, all the folders or files that I have starred will show up here, and it's kind of like favoriting it. It just makes it easy to access these. And if you want, you can remove the star, and then it goes away from that area. You can rename it. That's self-explanatory. View details. When I click on that, I get this little pop-up on the right. And the details tab basically just has like a little preview of what the document is. And then the activity tab will show the changes that have been made over time, which is really cool. So I can see today I created this item and I shared it to individuals, and I scroll up a bit and I see that 9:36, Lisa edited the item. And I can see later on, Kim edited it. So, and I can see I shared it with Molly and Gail, which we saw in this workshop. So you can kind of see a track of the changes that have been made, as well as what day and time that those have been made, which can come in handy.
Where did you get the detail at?
There's a couple of ways to do it. You can right click and do the view details,
okay.
Or you'll notice that the little icon is the same as this icon in the top right. That's another way. Select the file, click on that little icon, and you get the same thing. Either way. You can make a copy if you need to. Now I just have a copy of that document. You can download it if you don't want, well, I mean, you can still keep it on the Google Drive, but you can also have a downloaded copy if you wanted to. And then remove is basically like deleting. If you remove something, it will show up in your little trash can, which you can access on the left-hand side here. And you'll see your various documents that you put in there. And you can restore them if you wanted to. Right click and restore, or you can delete forever. All right, that is everything from this. Let's go into the document. So now this is a Google Doc, which is a lot like Microsoft Word. And I'm not gonna teach you how to use this because that's an entire workshop all on its own. But one thing I do wanna show you from here is what you have under the file. So you can share it from here, which is fine. You know, if you're like working in here and you don't want to go back to that Google Drive page to share it, you can share it directly from here. You can email it directly from here, which is kind of cool. You can email collaborators, which, you know, allows other people to work on it. You can download it. And this is something I want to call out is the Google Drive, Google Docs, I mean, lets you download in different file formats, including PDF. So that's really cool. If you had a Word document, well, you can save a Word document as a PDF. I guess really this only comes in handy if you're working in Google Docs and want to save it as a PDF, but I still think it's a pretty cool tool. You can see a version history to let you see changes over time, and you can name current versions. So if you're working on something together with someone, they can start working on it and name their version like and this way, when I look at version history, I can see the changes. So here's where I first created this document and nothing's in it yet. And then I start doing some stuff in it and it shows me what has been changed. And then I can go to the next version and see, okay, I deleted Sherry's name, go to the next version and I see that Lisa and Kim had added. So this is a super handy thing when you're working on a document with multiple people, being able to keep track of the versions and the changes that have been made. Occasionally you might run into the scenario where someone makes a change, one of your collaborators makes a change on the document that you don't want to keep. Maybe they deleted something that you had and you're like, I know I really want that in there, but I can't remember the wording. You can go back through the different versions and find the version that had what you had typed and say, okay, this is how I said it. And, you know, either paste it back in the current version or you can restore the old version like before they deleted it. So I can see when I go to the different versions, I have these 3 dots. If I click on that, I have several options. I can rename the version. I can restore to this version. So right now, the current version is this one, right? Where I have Lisa and Kim have added their ice cream. If I wanted to go back before that, I can say restore to this version. It says, are you sure you want to do that? I say yes. And now this is the current version, the one without their contribution.
So what happens if it's you that makes the change and then you're like, oh, nope, I really wanted that other version. Can you go back and do that yourself as well?
Yeah, yep. So if we, let's see, go back to the version history and see the version history, we'll notice that the first two versions are just me. So there's the one where I just kind of started the document but didn't do anything yet. And then the next one, I added this. And so the only person that has acted in the document is me, but you can see it made two different versions because I had made those changes.
So are you telling me that I don't need to do the save as and change the name so I can say the two different versions? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if you were working directly within the Google Doc, that's correct. Let's see. You can get information about folders just like you can about files. So I select the folder and I click on the little details thing. And first is the details tab. And I see the little silhouette icon. So I know it's been shared with others. And it says who has access. And if I hover over the little circles, it'll show me who has access. I can manage the access from here if I want to. I can get some information. Tells me it's a Google Drive folder, it's in my drive, when it was last modified, et cetera, stuff that you probably don't need to know too much about. And we can see activities as well. And it shows me basically the most recent activities within this folder. So just like you can see the details and extra information with files, you can do the same with folders. Let's go to shared with me. So this shared with me is a list of files and folders that have been shared with you that are owned by others. So let's look at the top one here. It shows me last week, I had this Kitchenistas video shared with me, and it shows shared by, that's the owner, Christina. And when it was shared, she shared it on April 1st. And I can see other files, as I scroll through. Depending on the level of access that they gave you when they shared it with you, there are different things that you can do. If they gave you editor access, then you can do all sorts of things to it. Actually, you know what? This is a great time to show this slide. So this is a breakdown of the access by kind of ownership type or permission type. We see the owner and the editor basically have the same permissions. They can delete files and folders, add files and folders, share, edit, comment, view. Commenters have the ability to comment and suggest edits, and they can view the files and folders. And then viewer just can view the files and folders. They can't even make comments or anything else. So this is just a kind of a handy guide to the different access. And depending on, what access you have from someone else's document, you can make changes or just view. Over on the left, we have recent below the shared with me. Recent just shows the most recent documents that you've opened. It's another way to more quickly reach a document if you've opened it recently, kind of like the starred, except the starred doesn't matter if it's recent or not. It's going to be there, whether it's, here's one that I starred from August in 2020. But it's still there because it was starred. Whereas recent, only the most recent. But it does tell you, the name of it, when it was opened, who the owner is, and it also gives you the file size if you need that for some reason. And we talked about trash. Last one, storage. You really don't need to know anything about the storage. It has some extra information that if you were really into the nitty gritty details about your Google Drive, you might be interested in, but really it doesn't matter for us. Let's look at some of these things across the top now. we have the search bar, and it operates the way most, online searches does, by keyword. So let's say I'm looking for my ice cream thing. I can type in ice. And we saw that it popped up with my result, but let's say it didn't, and I just want to search for ice. All these files somewhere in there have the text ICE next to it. It may not be the actual word ice. It may be entice, just somewhere ICE, all in a row or in all of these documents. But we see there's my favorite ice cream. That was the one I'm looking for. So that's a search. But I can also add some search filters by clicking on this little button here. And I can filter by the file type. Like if I knew I was looking for a doc, I can narrow it down so it only shows documents. So for example, we see here's their Excel version, and here's a PDF. If I narrowed it down to documents and did my search, then I see it doesn't have those document types. So it's just a way to filter to narrow down your search if you have a lot of search results. You can also filter by the owner. You can add more keywords. You can add terms that are in the name. If you know where it is located, where it's saved, you can add that. If you know when it was last modified, you can add that. Basically, it's just a nice way to filter so that you can find exactly what you're looking for in your search and not have to scroll through a ton of documents. Next to that, we have support. These are just handy things if you need help with Google Drive, training, if there's any updates. That's all that's really important there. You have the settings icon, and you can change some of your settings in your Google Drive. Probably the only thing that you might be interested in changing here is this density. And so this changes how compressed all the icons and files and all the images are in your Google Drive. So I have it as comfortable, and we can see what it looks like. And if I were to change it to compact, we'll see everything's a lot closer together. That's probably the only setting that you might be interested in changing. Everything else you could probably just leave as is. We have this little button for Doodle Apps. This is another way to reach the various applications that Google has. Like we saw, Google Docs is basically their version of Word. Sheets is their version of Excel. Slides is their version of PowerPoint. They have a calendar, all sorts of nifty tools that you can make use of if you want to. You don't have to, but a lot of them are pretty cool. This is your account, and you can log into other Google accounts or log out. I don't really do anything with any of these. It's just really just an easy way to reach your calendar. I don't know what Keep is. Oh, it's just Notes. I don't know what that is. You're welcome to explore this if you want to. I don't really ever use it, and you can hide it just so it's out of the way. All right, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. So for the last 9 minutes, I'll just answer whatever questions you might have.
If I have a document that's been shared with me that is view only, but the editor has said you can make changes to this if you save it under a different name so that you can edit it. What's the best way to do that?
So let's take a look. Kim. There you go. So I'm going to make you a viewer only and save it. And now, are you able to go to this file on your computer? And so for view only, you might have to download it to make your edits. I'm not sure. You probably can't make, I don't know if you can even make a copy, to be honest with you. You might have to download it.
Yeah, I can't save it under a different name because that still has it. It keeps it as view only.
If you right click on the file and let's see, choose make a copy, does it give you a change in permissions, or are you still?
No.
Okay, that was my thought. So you might have to download it. And then once you've downloaded it, it should be your file and you should be able to make changes. And then once you've made your changes to the downloaded version, you can upload it back to the Google file. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Or you can ask the person who owns it to change your permissions. If they really need you to be able to edit it, then they can just make you, give you editing permissions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good question. Oh, Jenny, for some reason I can't hear you. You're not, it doesn't look like you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. That was
Sorry,
weird.
it's me. It's the Bluetooth.
Ah, okay.
If I have a document that I really don't want changed, would it be best to do it in PDF? How do you, if you're going to share with somebody, I want you to, but I really don't want you to change it at all. Is there any way to secure that?
If you just leave their permission as viewer, then they can't do anything to it. All they can do is see it.
Even if they download it?
So they won't be able to do anything with your actual file that's there. If they download it, they can edit their version. But if they were to like re-upload it, it would be a different file. It wouldn't be your file because the viewer permission won't let them replace your file. Like if they had edit permission, then they could actually replace the original. But if they were to upload it, they would have to upload it as a copy or a different file. So you would see that it's not your original. But they would technically be able to make edits to their downloaded copy. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
As to how you can share it and not let them make any changes until download, I am not sure. I can find out. I'm not sure off the top of my head, though. I'll look it up and I'll let you know what I find. You probably will have to do that when you're making the document. Usually you can do it as like a read only, especially with like Microsoft Word or even I believe PDFs, you can make them read only. And then that just won't allow people to make any changes to it, even after they download it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I use, I'm starting to use Google Forms more for student surveys.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I need to talk to Evan or not. So I usually what I used to do is say, these are my fall surveys. And now I'm doing winter surveys. Do I need to change a different link, or should I be able to just use that same link and download that information differently?
I would probably recommend making a copy of the form and having an individual form for each semester, just because it'd probably be nice to keep the responses separate.
That's what okay. You're answering exactly what I'm at. Yeah, thank you.
Cool, great. Kathy in the chat said, can you make a copy and then it remains an original without changes made by those with whom you've shared? Yeah, so you could have multiple copies of the same file, and one copy you could keep not shared with anyone, and that can kind of be like your primary copy. I can't think of the term that I want, but basically primary copy. And then the second copy of it could be the one that you share and allow people to make edits and changes to, and just keep those two copies separate. You have the one file, which is the pristine one that never changes, and then you have the one that people can make changes to. Does that make sense, Kathy? Okay, great. Lisa, how are you doing? Any questions?
No, you've done a very fine job explaining. I'm fine.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, I didn't cover everything. Just the essentials, just the most important things, the things that I thought would be most useful, hopefully are the most useful. But as you use it, you'll learn different things, and don't be shy about using it. You're not going to break anything. play around and make mistakes and know that your mistakes aren't going to hurt anything. But yeah, I like it as a tool. The most impressive aspect for me is the sharing feature, the collaboration feature. That's where I think it kind of goes above and beyond just the storage aspect of the O drive. I know that, you can have multiple people accessing the same file in the O drive, but it doesn't necessarily have that tracking feature, like the version history and stuff like that. That I think is pretty cool. And then, like I said, there have been some rumblings about the possibility of the O drive going away. As I said, I have absolutely no idea if that is ever going to happen, but I have heard some rumblings. And if it does happen, when it will happen, it could be 10 years from now for all I know. But just rest assured, of course, that if the O drive does go away, IT will give you plenty of time to make your transition to like the Google Drive or whatever the replacement might be. Do we ever need to empty the trash? No, you don't have to. I am almost certain that the amount of storage space that we have is dynamic and will just continue to grow as you need it to grow. The only time that you might need to empty the trash is if you do get an alert that you've reached your maximum storage, which I don't think will happen, but if it does, then you can delete some stuff in your trash to free up that space. And you just go into the trash can. You can select multiple things at once if you want to, right click, delete forever, and then it gets rid of them and will clear up some of that space. You probably won't ever have to do it though.
But I'm hearing from you that we could use this just like our O drive.
Yep.
And so I might transfer things over that way. And this is just an off the wall question. Do you have to know if Google Drive is HIPAA compliant by any chance?
I don't. I'm sure you're not the first one to ask that question. So if you Google it, you'll probably find tons of answers, but I'm not sure. Good question though. Probably very important question.
But I say some of the students' assessments on our O drive, and I'm assuming that's the same security level that we would have at the college is what's on Google Drive.
Right. I would imagine the only thing that you need to be careful of is just making sure that you're not putting any of those type of files into folders that are shared with people that shouldn't have access. Yeah. And so that is, that is one potential, not necessarily a drawback, but something to be cautious of is because it's so easy to share and collaborate in the Google Drive. You do need to be a little bit extra cautious when you're putting files into certain locations that you're not putting them obviously accidentally in places that other people have access to. It'd be easier to do in the Google Drive probably than the O drive, because just the permissions in the O drive are, already kind of set, whereas the permissions in your Google Drive, you're kind of setting. So